Greetings to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We are happy you can join us from the respective time zone you are in. That was a video compilation of different children's activities and mobilizations. I'm Nikki, currently a board member of the Stichting voor Filipijnse Kinderen, or Foundation for Filipino Children. We are based in the Netherlands, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. Today's webinar is in cooperation with Foundation for Filipino Children, International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, Sanin Lahi Alliance for Children's Concerns, and Children Rehabilitation Center. To open our program and formally welcome everyone to our webinar, dubbed as 1,000 Voices, Building Solidarity for the Filipino Children, a webinar on the impacts of human rights and international humanitarian law violations against the Filipino children, let us tune in to a video recording from Jan Minkman, current board chairperson of the Foundation for Filipino Children.
Hello, welcome everybody. I would like to welcome you to this webinar, being the chairwoman for the Foundation for Filipino Children. I'd like to thank you so much for your participation. It means a lot to us. And I will take this time to introduce a little bit about our work, what we do. The Foundation for Filipino Children has been around for a long time. It was actually founded in 1993. But since then, all the original board members have left. And now the foundation consists of me. My name is Jan Minkman. I didn't mention that yet, but that's my name. Nikki Guzman, who is currently in Hong Kong doing an internship. But for the first 2 years, we were very actively rebuilding the foundation when she still lived here in the Netherlands. And our newest board member is Elena Saturai. She only joined last week, so she's a very new addition. Now, what the foundation's been trying to do ever since they asked me to come on board is raise both awareness and funds for the Philippines. A lot of people in the Netherlands don't know what the situation in the Philippines is like. They don't know that human rights are being violated on a daily basis. And what we set out to do was to make them aware of the situation and then convince them to donate to our foundation so we can help people in the Philippines and support grassroots organizations such as the the Rehabilitation Center for Children, Sanin Lahi, and other parties. So that's what we've been doing in the Netherlands. We have a book project going on. There is a book called The Legend of the Water Dragon that was written in both Dutch and English by Elena Saturai, also my sister-in-law, together with a Dutch author, Isolde Boers. She writes children's books. And we did this so we could make a broader audience aware of what's going on. For example, with the Luma tribe, the Buckwheat schools that were closed down, the children who were forcibly removed from their native lands. So the book was written with that in mind, that topic, and we made sure that all the proceeds from book sales went directly to the Luma tribes and the people affected. So we've been quite busy, but we would like to get a more international reach. And this is why we also set up this seminar. The objectives of the seminar today are first and foremost to launch the 1,000 Voices campaign for the Filipino children. And you will hear a lot more about this later on during the seminar. We also want to educate people on the situation of Filipino children and also the need for international support. And then 3, we would like to reach a broad international audience. I think you can hear my birds chirping a bit in the background. I'm sorry, I couldn't get them to shut up, so we're just gonna have to endure their presence for a little bit. Well, we also want to stress the importance of international support in advancing the rights of Filipino children. I think It really means the world to people in a country that might feel sometimes like the rest of the world has forgotten about them and that no one knows what's going on there. To see that other people from other countries support their cause, and this is the message we want to propagate. So in attending today, I hope you will learn a lot about the current situation, and please let us know how you can contribute, whether it being with funds or your support or a campaign. Anything and everything is useful in this sense. Even the smallest thing that you can do will contribute, because together we can do great things. That's what I'm hoping for today. So thank you again for attending, and enjoy the rest of this seminar.
Thank you, Ian. Indeed, we hope that everyone will have a takeaway from today's webinar. On another note, later on in our program, we will have a solidarity action for the Filipino children, and we encourage everyone, if you haven't prepared yet, to have a paper doll or a doll cut out to symbolize our support and commitment to the Filipino children. This is an example of a doll that we can use later for the solidarity action. Now, without further ado, to share on the current situation of the Filipino children, we call on Nori Lariosa from Sanin Lahi.
Yeah. Again, good day. I want to share the situation of children in the Philippines. So before we start, I want to define who is children. Children refers to individuals under 18 years of age, or those who are older but are unable to protect themselves from abuse, mistreatment, neglect, exploitation, or physical or mental discrimination due to disability or condition. Next slide. It is clear in the UNCRC that the government of the Philippines is one of the countries that have an obligation to ensure that children are provided with adequate information about their rights, and that they provide basic assistance services for their development. So it emphasizes the rights of children to join, attend, and contribute to discussions on the deepening of the rights law. They also have the rights to collaborate with private groups, NGOs, and individuals on how to express the children's issues. Yet, millions of Filipino children, continue to struggle with poverty, exploitation, lack of education, and inadequate healthcare. Next slide, please. Currently, there are 39.65 million Filipino children under 18 years old. Of these, 3.7 million do not have enough food to meet their basic needs, while 10.5 million consider themselves poor. Next slide. So these staggering numbers reflect the growing economic challenges in the country, including the rising inflation, unemployment, and increasing national debt. The ripple effects of these challenges are evident in the lives of children. Next slide. So, aside from that, with the Marcos administration, Marcos Jr. administration, the current debt of Philippines increased to 15.18 trillion peso as of February 2024, while farmers, children are not safe from the daily hardship they suffer, which is the result of feudal and semi-feudal oppression and exploitation. Including their families, they suffer from landlessness, low income, and backwardness agricultural system that further plunged them into poverty. Okay, next slide. And also, the continuous price hike of basic commodities that can't afford by many Filipino families. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay. So, the ongoing issues of jeepney phase out that will affect many children of their family. So in the Philippines, according to Inclusivo, one of the organizations here in the Philippines, around 200,000 transport workers bound to lose their livelihood, and it's equivalent to approximate 600,000 of children of transport workers that will face difficulty in attaining the right to life and adequate standard of living. So there has an effect to children because of the jeepney phase out. Okay, next slide. Yeah. Having a decent job is also a big problem in the Philippines. Contractualization is still rampant, and the numbers of individual working in agricultural sectors continue to decrease. So according to the Ibon Foundation, 1.4 million jobs lost stresses need to strengthen local agricultural or the Filipino industries. Okay, next slide. So as you can see in the screen, it was from the Ibon Foundation. The NCR, family living wage, should receive 1,206 pesos per day or 26,226 per month in order to leave them decent or the family. But the current minimum wage is 645. Okay. Next slide. And for the next slide, you can see the difference between the wage of the regional wage in the Philippines. So, but according to the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA, an individual is not poor if more than 64 pesos or if you have a 64 pesos spent on food per day. So the infographic shows minimum wages of different regions, and you will see the 49% wage gap between the National Capital Region and the Bangsamoro region. Okay, next slide. So let's proceed to different issues concerning children. One pressing issue is the child labor. Okay, next slide po. So despite the laws protecting children, there is a 1.48 million young Filipinos ages 5 to 17 years old are working, with many employed in agriculture, services, and industry. So the root cause of this exploitation, first, of course, it is include the poverty, the landlessness, and the lack of decent work for their parents. Unfortunately, this is also stems from limited awareness of children's rights among marginalized families. So, okay, next slide. So, here you will see the mostly of child workers ages 15 to 17 years old with 61.6%. And the majority on the, based on their gender, majority of them are from male with 66.2%. Okay, next slide. Yeah. And they even the government even established the National Council Against Child Labor to strengthen the protection of the rights of children, to help them prevent, reduce, and eliminate any form of child labor. But as the oppression and exploitation of the laboring masses caused by the constant crisis suffered by the Filipino society that is maintained and intensified by the neoliberals government policy. The oppression and the exploitation will also intensify their children. In this view, we must be drawn bias in the range of young, hardworking in promoting advocacy and activities. Okay, next slide. Aside from the child labor, one of the problem is also the education. Hindi ko nakikita. So, education is a fundamental rights, remains out of reach for many Filipino children. So, in the Philippines ranks poorly in global educational assessment with 90% of 10 years old struggling with basic reading. So, it started during the pandemic. So, yeah. Next slide. So the chronic underfunding or the lack of funds in the Department of Education with the country allocating only 3.6% of its GDP or the gross domestic product for education. But the UN standard is 4.6%, 4 to 6%. So, and according to the 2025 National Expenditure Program or the NEP, the allocation for SUCs is 113.75 billion pesos. This is 12% lower compared to the current budget of 128.23 billion. It is feared that the major share will go to the defense sector, which will have a nearly 51% increase. So, next slide. And in addition, million of children are out of school youth or are out of school, and the classroom and teachers remain insufficient to accommodate those enrollees. One of the leading reasons why children are unable to study is the very high cost of tuition fees or also the school supplies. And based on the UNICEF report in 2022, 2.8 million children ages 6 to 5 years old are out of school. Okay. Next slide. We have 327,851 public schools in the Philippines. Of this number, 104,536 are in good condition. For the year 2024, but what the DepEd accomplished during the Sara Duterte administration in the Department of Education, or being the Secretary of DepEd, that time she only established during her term was only 1,648 classrooms. Okay, next slide. So, yeah. And aside from the child labor, education, it also the problem is the health challenge in the Philippines. So, healthcare challenges for the burden Filipino children. So, the state abandoned the responsibility of providing health services under the public-private partnership program. At the same time, the government also cut funding to the Department of health. So next slide. So you can see in the screen are mostly data, but here is the malnutrition remains a problem with 21.6% of children under 2 stunted and 95 children dying daily due to malnutrition. There is a big relationship between the lack of proper nutrition of the children and the economic status of the family. No, malnutrition is a major factor in being vulnerable to various diseases or sickness. But there is an additional burden on parents when their children get sick and need medical services. Also, due to unaffordability or they can't afford because and the poorest family cannot access the basic social services. Next. Also, the access to safe water and sanitation is also limited, affecting both homes and schools. Mental health is another overlooked crisis, with 10 to 15% of children facing mental health issues and a rising number attempting suicide, which is very alarming. For the past years, it rise during the pandemic, which children do not have socialization anymore. No, so the mental health problem of the children get high. Okay, next slide. One one in addition, one problem facing by children and youth is the teenage pregnancy. 5.4% of women ages 15 to 19 experience early pregnancy as of 2022. There is a 35% increase in pregnancies among women ages 15 and under from 2021 to 2022. And for every 1,000 births, 17.22% of children die in 2024. Okay, next slide. So next is the children in street situation. They have three categories in the children in street situation. First, the children on the street makes up approximately 75% of the street children in the Philippines. They work on the streets but do not live there. Second, children of the street make their homes on the street. They make up 25% to 30% of the street children in the Philippines. And lastly, completely abandoned. Children have no families or tie anymore and are entirely on their own for physical and psychological survival. In addition to impending violence, street children lack access to education and information, proper nutrition, and clean water, medical attention, and protection. Most of them belong to families that do not have a regular source of livelihood or have been abandoned since childhood. They battle different levels of vulnerability every day to survive. These children are in a complicated situation because of the tangled issues they face at a young age. As a majority of poor Filipinos complain, there is no guarantee that there is a regular source of food, expenses, and medicine for people who depend on the streets. So, next slide. So, you can see in the slide is the increase in abuse and exploitation. There has a lifetime prevalence of violence among children ages 13 to 17 as of 2015. It was data from the PSA, I think. And then, next slide. Over 17,000 cases of child abuse were reported in 2023, according to the national PNP and the hospital. But many of unreported cases happen in the Philippines, who the children's experience violence. And 80% of Filipino children and youth have experienced some from the abuse in their lives. Okay, next slide. Ayan. This is the reported cases of violence against women and children as of September 2024. So what I said earlier, there has many unreported cases because children don't know how to report, or maybe some of the children experience violence. The abuser is within their family. So that's the reason why there's many unreported cases. Okay, next slide. So one also the alarming issue faces by the Filipino children is the online sexual exploitation of children, with the Philippines ranking second globally in cases of child sexual exploitation materials. So in the Philippines, from 1,339,597 in 2020 to 3,188,793 in 2021. It was increased around 264%, which is the Philippines is the second highest in the world. This is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. So according to the International Justice Mission, internet-based child sexual exploitation increased from 43 per 10,000 IP address in 2014 to 149 in 2017. Okay, next. And the Philippines is also the number one hotspot and source of child sexual abuse and exploitation materials because of the implement. There has a law for the online sexual abuse and exploitation materials, but the implementation is a big problem here. So, yeah, next slide. Aside from the OSAEC, or the violence against women and children, there is also the war on drugs that had added another layer of trauma to children. During the Duterte administration, with at least 122 children killed from 2016 to 2019, and many more losing parents to drug-related violence. So, yeah. This data during the Duterte administration, more than 30,000 have reportedly killed extrajudicially in the campaigns against illegal drugs, including children. The situation is now the subject of the International Criminal Court investigation. So, no relevant domestic investigation has been undertaken that would sufficiently mirror the ICC investigation. Okay. Next slide, please. But the war on drugs campaign, even the end of the Duterte administration, it continues under the current administration, Marcos Jr. So in the NCR alone, it was from one of the organization in the Philippines. At least 20 children have been reportedly killed in year 2020 in relation to the ongoing drug war. In the second year of Marcos Jr.'s administration, drug-related deaths reached 359, higher than the 342 recorded the previous year. State agents were responsible for 34.3% of the murders under his war on drugs. So thousands of children are detained in jails. They experience rape, torture, and other forms of inhuman treatment. And some families of these reported that they received threat and harassments and forced them to withdraw their complaints by signing a waiver. So, next slide. So, aside from that, other situation of the, I will add the other situation of Filipino children. Children and adults is the most vulnerable to damages caused by strong storms, extreme floods, landslide, and other climate change related disaster. There is 5 million children with disability. 3 million children are left behind by their migrant workers' parents. And 5.6 million low-income Filipino families are the most affected by the worsening climate change. So, and the grave child rights violation. Let's proceed to the grave child rights violation. Okay, next slide. Yan. This is the list of youth in need of special protection measure according to the UNCRC. There is a children in armed conflicts, economic exploitation, including the child labor, children's street situation, commercialized sexual exploitation, trafficking, and pornography, rape, incest, and sexual exploitation, administration of juvenile justice, and minority and indigenous children. Okay, next slide. So, last 2022, Children's Rehabilitation Center had a national consultation with regions. So, here are some regions present during the event: NCR, Bicol, Central Luzon, and Southern Tagalog. So, regional disparities further highlight the struggles of the Filipino children. In urban areas like Metro Manila, issues such as housing, sanitation, and street children are rampant, and militarization. So, next slide. In rural regions like Southern Tagalog, children face displacement due to land grabbing, militarization, and forced relocation. Same with other regions. So they face fabricated cases against youth leaders. So there has a cases in Mindoro. The residents were on their way home, blocked, surrounded, and pointed a gun by the soldiers, and asked who they were. After they reached their home, they not able to speak because of the trauma they experienced. So in Bicol, there has also a militarization because of the Memorandum Order 32. So, same with the other region in Panay, Cebu, they experience red tagging, harassment, surveillance, tortures, and militarization. So, Next slide po. Okay. So, yeah. Please flash those slides because there has a same cases like militarization, land grabbing, surveillance, red tagging. No. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Next slide, please. So, yeah, next slide. This Bloody Sunday Massacre. Okay, next slide. Okay, I discussed this earlier. And then, next slide, please. Okay. So, next slide. Next slide. Yan. Despite these challenges, there is hope. Salinlahi of various campaigns and initiatives that aim to address the issue we discussed. So programs like Ligtas sa Balik Eskwela advocate for safe school returns, while efforts to combat child labor and online exploitation. So there is a campaign on early childhood care and development and age pregnancy. Okay, next slide. Mandatory ROTC and other issues. So the situation, okay, next slide. The situation of the Filipino children is both a call to action and a reminder to us of our collective responsibility. So the government's continued the implementation of liberalization and the regularization policies and privatization is further burying the toiling masses in more poverty. Only through collective action and promotion of national industrialization and through agrarian reform will achieve democratic interests and legitimate demands of citizens, including the children. So with that, we need to protect our children and defend their future, and sulong salin lahi. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Nori, for your informative sharing on the current situation of Filipino children and sharing about the pressing issues and challenges they face, as well sharing about your campaign Salin Lahi is doing. Now, to share on the impacts of these social realities on children, we call on Miss Cherry Guillermo, registered social worker from the Treatment and Rehabilitation Program of Children's Rehabilitation Center. CRC is a non-profit, non-government institution that provides psychosocial services to children and their families in rural and urban areas who are suffering from emotional disturbances, physical health problems, and social maladjustments due to traumatic events such as human rights violations, disasters, and sexual abuse. CRC is based in the Philippines and has partners all over the country. Let us welcome Sherry.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning to all of you. So, thank you for introducing me. I'm Cherry, and I'm from the Children's Rehabilitation Center. Since we have limited time, I will try to make my presentation as concise and direct to the point as possible. So, please bear with me. Thank you. Okay, sige. And as they said, Children's Rehabilitation is an organization which provides psychosocial support to children and their families who are survivor victims of human rights violations. It also engages in documentation and campaign for children's rights, including children's right to participation. So the flow of my presentation would be presenting some specific cases that we have handled recently in CRC. So the first one is Zia. So Zia is 14 years old. She has a direct experience with harassment. Her family members are red tagged, and her parent was recently killed by state forces. And her parent, who was killed, was allegedly an New People's Army or NPA official. So Zia is now orphaned, internally displaced, and forced to be apart from her family and loved ones. And apart from that, she stopped schooling for a year for security concerns. Right now, she experiences often and often violent and disturbing nightmares because she fears her parent was tortured, and she also experiences panic attacks and feelings of isolation. So the names and ages are altered. Next, another client. Next slide, please. Another client that I will present is Baby Max, who is now around 4 years old. So Baby Max, when he was 3 months old, uh, their house was raided and his caregiver was arrested and also took Baby Max to the police station. So the army soldiers alleged that he was abandoned by his mother, who was also accused as an NPA and was also recently killed. So what happened was that Baby Max was turned over to the City Social Welfare Development Office, then to a shelter. And then when the Baby Max's paternal grandparents requested the release, the SWD refused and the military continually harassed them. So the grandparents seek refuge in sanctuary since then. Next slide, please. So the next case I'm going to present is Brian, who is now 13 years old. So he is orphaned, witness to join police and military forces raiding their home and dragging his parents outside before both were violently killed, accused of fighting back, or in Filipino, nanlaban, and being armed rebels. So Brian is one of the children who are gravely affected with the Bloody Sunday Massacre, which is a series of police and military operations in southern Tagalog region in 2021, which led to 7 arrests and killings of 9 community leaders and activists. Now, Brian is now being raised solely by his grandmother, who is a farmer with minimal income. So Brian experienced being teased at school for being orphaned and reportedly gets into fights with classmates according to his teacher. And he is observed to have high risk-taking behavior. Next slide, please. Next is the Santos siblings, who are also affected by the Bloody Sunday Massacre. They are direct witnesses to state forces raiding their home and eventual illegal arrest of their grandmother, who was wrongfully jailed for 15 months. So Tres described being traumatized, experiences difficulty in sleeping and eating, dazed or tulala, reported hallucinations. Tres recalls her brother Uno being the one who opened the door and was pointed with a gun. Uno actively avoids and refuses talking about the incident even more than 3 years since. Next slide, please. Emerald, who is 12 years old, is a witness to her parent being taken away at dawn from their home by armed military forces. Then minutes later, she hears the gunshots. Her parent is killed, reportedly showed signs of torture, and accused again of being a member of the NPA. So her other 2 siblings also deal with grief and anger, and Emerald particularly does not go back to their home after the incident because they fear that state forces will come back for her since she is a witness. She reported that the military frequents the area and practically stays there, sowing fear and intimidation in the whole community. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, children in communities struggling against land grabbing and violent demolition. So this data we gathered through children's activities or community psychosocial interventions. So one community, their parents were arrested, accused of trespassing inside their own community. They are IPs, by the way, or indigenous people. And their community is fenced and guarded by goons. So the children were forced to stop going to school because are not allowed to go back inside their community once they are out. So they experienced forced hunger, meaning they barely eat once a day or a few times a week only. And the second community, goons also forced putting up fences. They attack community members in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning, including children. And the children reported feeling extreme fear, and at least one experienced red tagging by a teacher inside school. And the third community, children directly witnessed forced entry of armed forces inside their home and experienced being pointed at with a gun and told to run, threatened to be shot. Next, please. So we just presented some of the highlights of what children human rights violations are. So the following are the impacts or the general impact of children human rights violations. So we're using a biopsychosocial perspective. So the first one is biological. So children who experience human rights violations, be it direct or indirect, are more vulnerable to illnesses because of their low immunity and because of their exposure to their adverse childhood experience or traumatic experience. So as you have seen from the children's accounts earlier, they experience difficulty eating, sleeping. They also have psychosomatic symptoms such as chest pains. And next, the social impact of CHRVs on no, not next. So social, ayun. So the children are also experience loneliness, feelings of isolation, difficulty connecting, making friends, low self-esteem, and forced separation from family or loved ones. And heavy on the psychological aspect. So the children have high risk of developing mental disorders. Uh, it, sorry, Bagala. First one is grief. So it is possible that they have a longer processing of the grief because the conditions of the death of their loved ones are brutal or beyond what can be described as natural death. So yun. Next in the psychological impact, ano, no na. Psychological pa lang po sa taas. Back. Please, previous slide. Let's stay on the. I just said, okay, thank you. Ayan. Next is anxiety and distrust, depression, loneliness, isolation. Children also experience suicidal ideation, self-harm, the feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness, which can be overwhelming. Anger towards perpetrators or anger towards their parents. They can sometimes put blame on their parents for because of their work, they experience such and such. There's also guilt, pervasive fear, and there's also numbness, denial, repression, or social withdrawal. Okay. That's it. Next slide, please. And then from Salin Lahi, these are some of the specific psychological effects, particular to children who are victims or witness to war on drugs or are affected by the war on drugs by Duterte. So, yun, it's pretty much the same. The children affected can suffer from trauma, ideation, depression, symptoms of PTSD, intensive fear, and there's also discrimination and stigmatization, which affects their schooling and community participation. Yun. And there's also difficult and prolonged grieving process since, yun, as we have said earlier, the circumstances surrounding the death aren't normal. Next, apart from those, there are also other. Next slide, please. There are also other impacts to children who are victims of human rights violations. Number one is economic, because their parents or their loved ones or caregivers who are breadwinners are gone. They are reduced or have no source of income, which we can equate to the children being uh, forced into poverty, as we have seen with the case of Brian earlier. He is being raised solely by his grandmother, who is a farmer with little to minimum income. Next, for the educational aspect, as for the as shown earlier by the cases, specific cases, there can be major disruption in education. So, Zia, for example, stopped for a year, and then the other children who experienced land grabbing had to stop schooling. Yan. So, and there's also difficulty focusing at school, which can affect their academics. Next is environment and lifestyle. So some children are experience displacement. They are uprooted dramatically from previous or original environment. Um, Chained with that is there is a reconfiguration of their entire life for security purposes. They hide names, restrict photos, exposure in social media, additional caution when in movement. So it really affects them, even though sometimes the children can have an outgoing personality, they are restricted because of security concerns, which impacts, in turn, their other aspects like psychologically and socially. Okay, and for the last one is spiritual. So there can be changes in beliefs, attitudes, dreams, and motivations. For example, some children report that before the incident, they want to be a police. Then after the incident, they're angry. And there's erosion of trust in authorities. And some children want to be a police for revenge. So there are different uh, it is different for everyone. The impact of children human rights violations are different for everyone. But nevertheless, they are undeniably significant to the development of the children. Next slide, please. Yun. But in CRC, we would like to emphasize that the impact may not necessarily be just negative. No, these experiences are experiences, and despite these, we believe in the strength and capacity of the children to be resilient, and their strengths can be further amplified. And these experiences are very heavy, and we acknowledge that they may not be fully they may not fully heal like or go back to their previous or quote unquote normal life. But this experience can they can also use they also used it actually as a motivation to act in solidarity. So the children uh, use their experiences and connect with children like them, and they realize that they are not the only one who are experiencing these things. And in that collective solidarity with other children from across the country, across the globe who experience this violence that they're not supposed to experience, they find the motivation to act and to move and to fight for their rights. So the children join solidarity actions, relief operations, issue discussions, community integrations. In CRC, they also engage in the co-facilitation of children's activities or PSIs or psychosocial interventions. And then they also engage in art-based activities such as composing songs, writing plays, devising movements in theater plays, and other activities. And another one is speaking engagements or testimonies. Yun. So the children also share their stories when they are comfortable. Yeah. And later we will also hear one of the children who will tell his story. So, ayan, there's a quote here I've drawn from one of the children's speech. Yun, from Zia. She said, it is fun to have an organization, which is the CRC Children's Collective. Here, I felt that I am free to express my thoughts and feelings in the organization. I was able to build friends who are also my companions in campaigning and fighting for children's rights. Next, please. So with that, and just a summary of what we do, just a quick presentation of what we do in CRC. So we basically do art and play-based interventions. Like we said, for the documentation, we mainly use art and play. So there are community psychosocial interventions, theater play, production work, engagement in issue discussions, children's camp, And we also engage with fellow human rights defenders. So there's also a training of community workers for children's rights, programming, documentation, psychosocial support. Under our therapy framework, which are release diagnostics, meaning construction, and cognitive mastery. So next slide, please. So just next slide. Visual presentation of what we do. Yun, there. Okay. Sige, okay na po. Okay. So for the serious challenges, so of course, the serious challenge is documentation. Number one in that aspect is fear of the community members on the ground. On the ground, the fear, the threat to life is more than concrete. It is lived daily. So the people are easily killed, easily branded as quote unquote rebels or child soldiers. There is difficulty in reporting and verification of primarily related to personnel, finances, and which connects also to the next 2 points, red tagging and security. So it is a real experience of organizations, partner organizations with CRC. Organizations are red tagged, leaders and organizers are harassed, intimidated, abducted, and killed. So, as you can see, the challenges are all interconnected. And so there is a limited or lack of resources, particularly personnel, finances, and logistics. Next slide, please. Yeah, for the conclusion. So, CRC believes that grave child rights violations are gravely undocumented and gravely underreported. Why? So, in the family of the human rights defenders are threatened, intimidated, harassed, constantly under surveillance, or state forces try to get close, feed black propaganda to influence the accused family member to quote unquote surrender. There's also the huge aspect of militarized communities. There's what they call the psy war or psychological war, where like what we saw from the community of one of the cases presented earlier, the presence of armed military men are so fear in the community, which is which has been proven to be a potent silencer um, for calling out of all their wrongdoings. Yun. And lastly, they are also infiltrating schools and universities. For example, now the government is pushing for mandatory ROTC, which is now a bill and is being railroaded by several government officials that are dominating the Congress, the Senate, the the government. Yun. And the military and the police hold quote unquote symposiums at schools to red tag progressive organizations, telling the students that don't join these organizations, they are terrorists, yan. And even in private schools, just earlier this month, NTF-ELCAC or the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, yun, is joined by the Coordinating Council for Private Educational Association or COCOP with 1,500 private schools. So it's not just the public schools anymore. They are also trying to get to the private schools, which is just a manifestation of how far they will go to spread this um, repression of dissent against human rights defenders and progressive organizations. Next slide, please. Okay, so in these concrete conditions, heavily militarized communities, both rural and urban, bombing of schools, killing of teachers and activists, trumped up charges, EO 70 or the whole of nation approach, MO 32 or the Memorandum Order number 32, which heightens or strengthens the military presence in communities, in certain communities, the passage of the anti-terror law, and yun, with those concrete conditions, as much as community members, family, and even organizers want to fully cooperate in formal investigations and verifications conducted by the United Nations, it is a normal reasoning for many to stay silent to survive, even though it results in injustice and the fostering of the culture of impunity. Next slide, please. With the continued and heightened attacks on human rights defenders, children human rights violations in the Philippines did not decrease. So we, from the CRC, we are asserting or even go as far as saying that what the UN report says may not be the reality on the ground. The state policies and the government's counterinsurgency program are attacks on human rights defenders, child rights advocates, especially on children. Next. So, our campaign or our message is address the root cause of armed conflict for a genuine change and for the future of the children. Next slide. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you. So protect our children and defend our future. Um, we would also like to call on Marcelo who is a member of the CRC Children's Collective, and who will give his testimony. He is the youngest volunteer who was illegally and violently arrested in Tinang, Tarlac with his parents during a solidarity action called Bongkalan, which is an activity where volunteers join farmers in planting as a way to fight land grabbing and assert their right to the land they till. So, ayan. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to first give a background of Hacienda Tinang. Hacienda Tinang is a farmland with a group of farmers who did not know they already had legal papers for their land. They did not know this for almost 50 years, and the landlord, who was the newly elected mayor of Concepcion City, Tarlac, also known as Mayor Villanueva, didn't tell them about this. My family, along with other advocates and artists, came to help the farmers with a solidarity event known as Bongkalan, with the goal to assert their right to their land. Whilst we were farming and helping the farmers, police and military forces started arriving. We first negotiated with police and military that we would first leave after eating and packing up, and we had a proper agreement. While getting ready to leave, one farmer was suddenly grabbed and put in the police mobile. They started bashing the door open while pulling and beating up some of our fellow advocates outside. You can even hear the police chief telling the other officers, you can even hear the police officer telling other officers which made up cases should be charged on us. Even if you try to have negotiated with them, they would have taken you immediately and arrested you on the spot. Multiple of our fellow advocates were dragged on the floor by the hair and being pulled onto the police mobile. Later on, it seemed they had calmed down. They gathered all of us outside and asked for each of our IDs and identification. Every time they noticed that the person spoke Tagalog or came from the city, they would illegally arrest them on the spot, not even reciting our Miranda rights and taking us to the mobile immediately. When they got to me and my parents, they started telling my family, why would they bring me to each terrorist meetup, me a child? Every time you ask them what the reasoning is, they would only respond with, you're a terrorist, a communist. We were all then brought to the precinct for what they told us was identification. When we were put inside, they locked the gates. I was then released a few hours later, but my parents were still kept there. They officially arrested and charged 83 people, with each person getting at least 3 or more cases charged onto them. My parents got an additional charge of child exploitation and my mother human trafficking as well. We were able to raise bail for everyone, and we were also able to charge multiple cases on each police officer responsible for the illegal arrests, and the land. And the land has finally been given to the farmers of Tinam, and they now have their official right to their land. Although some cases are still ongoing in court, and the farmers still face intimidation and harassment from police and military. And of course, we still have remaining mental health conditions and have diagnosis of PTSD and more mental health conditions from such intense experiences such as this in Hacienda Tinang, but still remain to support the farmers of Tinang and still remain to fight for the rights of the farmers to their land and their basic human rights of as a Filipino citizen.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for your extensive sharing and what CRC is doing for the Filipino children. And thank you also, Marcelo, for sharing your testimony and sharing about Hacienda Tinang. We hope to see justice being served in the cases that are still going on. Justice for Hacienda Tinang, and also justice for all child victims of human rights violations. We haven't mentioned before, but please, you can use the chat box if you have questions. You can write them down for later the question Q&A portion, or you can please put them kindly in the chat box. We will now first go to a cultural performance. It's called Freedom of Education from San Lahi and a Children's Collective. Let us give us a round of applause for the Children's Collective. Thank you so much, Children's Collective. Thank you so much, Children's Collective, for your life-inspiring cultural number. And especially because it is past midnight in the Philippines. Thank you so much. We at the Foundation for Filipino Children, Sanhin Lahi, and CRC believe that children themselves can do something about their situation. Thus, efforts in organizing, building their skills to claim their rights have been part of the core values of these institutions. Our roles as advocates and solidarity allies are to amplify those efforts of the children themselves. And to share about the campaign, 1,000 Voices, we call on Isi Manano, project coordinator of the Foundation for Filipino Children.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Sanhin Lahi. So I guess the discussion prior to this is an extensive reason of why we have to take action. Thus, as Nikki mentioned, the Foundation for Filipino Children is spearheading a campaign entitled 1,000 Voices, a solidarity campaign against the impacts of human rights and international humanitarian law violations on Filipino children. Next slide, please. Just to have a bit of a background, when you look at the Philippines has a lot of ratified and signed laws, international laws, that makes it seem that the children's rights are protected in the Philippines. There are domestic laws and instruments also that have been in place for years that is supposedly protecting the rights of children. Next slide, please. But I think what Lori and Cherry and of course Marcelo shared earlier proves different, which is a concrete experience of the children, the Filipino children, and the advocates of Filipino children's rights in the Philippines. These are just some of some data that also supports what has been shared earlier. So I will not go through all of them. So next slide, please. Thus, the campaign 1,000 Voices is being spearheaded by FFC and Children's Rehabilitation Center and Sanhin Lahi Alliance for Children's Concerns, which is, we are launching it now and hopefully run until November of 2025. Next slide, please. So to share the campaigns of the objectives of the campaigns, number one is, of course, we want to highlight the human rights and IHL violations happening in the Philippines, and we want to raise awareness of how these violations impacts, harm, and affects the Filipino children. And the second, around this violation, we want to build a global solidarity and broaden and deepen global support for Filipino children. As we have seen, the children themselves, with the help of advocates and organizations like Salin Lahi and CRC, have been doing everything they can to to assert their rights, no, and to call for justice in what's happening in the Philippines. And then the third one is that we want to promote and produce materials from CRC and Salin Lahi and hopefully disseminate it globally. And then fourth is resource generation, and we want to raise funds to advance children's rights in the Philippines. Next slide, please. So the campaign has five major events, no? At least 1, 2, 3 major global events that we want to invite everyone to join in and contribute to. Next slide, please. So from November 2024, from today up until January 2025, we want to engage the global audience and partners and to roll out this type of webinar where we talk about children's rights, where we talk about the situation of the Filipino children, where we talk about how it is being violated, how they are impacted by the situation in the Philippines, because most of the time the children are always forgotten and just put to aside when we talk about human rights, when we talk about international humanitarian law. So we want to roll out this type of webinar, maybe in your organizations, in your areas of responsibilities, and to help raise that awareness globally. Next slide, please. We are also planning to have learning tours next year, maybe from April to June. We want to document and verify cases of child rights violations in the Philippines. As Cherry mentioned earlier, there has been very verification and monitoring and documentation of cases has been very hard for them, as they are also subjected to attacks, persecution, and red tagging. And I think the international audience should have a say on this and should be able to help out. We want to form a global delegation who will go to the Philippines and be able to help out in documentation and verifying those cases. Because with documentation and verification of these cases, we are able to give voices to the children, to the families who have been or are now being silenced, no? Because nobody are able to reach them. Next slide, please. And on November 2025, to kind of culminate the campaign, we want to mobilize partners to action and raise funds for children's work in the Philippines. You can participate by being a volunteer walker or runner and raise funds for every kilometer that you covered. Here in the Netherlands, we have an experience where volunteers would join marathons or tournaments where you would walk or run, and then there will be commitments or pledges in every mile or kilometer that you are able to cover. So hopefully we can set up those kinds of fundraising activities in areas all over the world to help support the children's work in the Philippines. Next slide, please. Of course, this campaign, we want to strengthen the global advocacy for children's rights in the Philippines and urge governments and organizations and individuals to support Filipino children's rights and hold accountable those who violate them. Next slide, please. I think we were missing 2 slides. Anyway, part of the campaign is also lobbying, which we will be leading also in wherever we can, whichever platform we can use, like the UN, the EU. We want to build lobbying teams to lobby on behalf of the cases or the families or the children, or if we are able to do it, bring in children victims to personally lobby their cases in these platforms. And then if you are interested to join us, you can contact us through this contact information. You can check out our website or you can email us, and you can check out our Facebook also on updates on the campaign. But hopefully, everyone who's interested, we can have a conversation around the campaign and how your organization or you as individual can help out. Next slide, please. Yeah. So that's the campaign. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to take action and help the Filipino children. Thank you.
Thank you, EC. Yes, we hope that by building solidarity all over the globe for the Filipino children, you will gather more people who will listen and try to understand and hopefully act and join in advancing the rights of the Filipino children. At this point, I want to mention we are somewhat over time, and we are definitely happy for everyone who is still with us. I realized I wasn't able to show the doll before that we have asked you to prepare for the solidarity action, but here is hopefully now visible, more like a paper doll that you can have ready for the solidarity action, which we will close off the webinar a little later, because we go first into a video message from Peter Murphy from ICHIRP. And ICHIRP is the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines. That is a global network of organizations concerned about the human rights situation in the Philippines and is committed to campaign for just and lasting peace in the country.
My name is Peter Murphy, speaking to you from the land of the Gadigal people in Sydney, Australia. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. The International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines sends its warm greetings and solidarity to the organizations on the front lines of child support in the Philippines, especially Salin Lahi and the Children's Rehabilitation Center. ICHIRP has always prioritized support for those from the most exploited classes and oppressed minorities in the Philippines. The children among the peasants and the workers and the indigenous peoples are especially vulnerable. We are proud of our member organization, the Foundation for Filipino Children, for its work promoting the rights of children in the Netherlands and beyond. And as ICHIRP, we continue to stand with the Filipino children. Since the beginning of the Duterte administration, and now with the Marcos Jr. administration, government programs and policies have victimized Filipino children and their families. They suffer hunger and have very limited access to health and education services. Malnourishment of children is a growing violation of children's rights. As well, the Philippines remains a global hotspot for sexual exploitation and trafficking of children. Under the War on Drugs policy, which ICHIRP calls the War on the Poor, and under the counterinsurgency program, millions of Filipinos, including children, have been subjected to human rights abuses such as extrajudicial killings, threats, harassment and intimidation, arrest and detention, forcible disappearances, and mass displacement. According to an ICHIRP fact-finding team in 2023, US and Philippine soldiers during the Balikatan exercise engaged in a joint training called, quote, building a classroom, which was in reality about intelligence work. soldiers moved around Alicia in Isabela province, mapping the community, and US soldiers occupied 4 elementary schools as part of the training. Community members rightly feared that the military presence would mean heavier surveillance, and military use of schools is against the rules of war. The attacks on over 220 LUMAD schools in Mindanao had a massive impact on over 10,000 students, and some were killed by military and paramilitary units. The LUMAD schools were finally destroyed or shut down by Duterte. Students and their families who fled to the United Church of Christ Haran compound in Davao City were subjected to paramilitary attacks, and UCC Haran was also itself accused of funding terrorists, and its bank accounts were frozen. Prominent citizens, teachers and church workers who saved Talaingod students from paramilitary attacks in 2019 were arrested for allegedly abducting the students, and 13 of those arrested were sentenced to 4 to 6 years in prison this year and are now appealing. In May 2021, the officer in charge of the Children's Rehabilitation Centre Southern Mindanao Regional Office, Lindy Trinilla, was hit with trumped-up charges of frustrated murder and child abuse. The NTF-ELCAC has falsely accused Salin Lahi and other cause-oriented organisations of funding the activities of communist groups in the Philippines. The NTF-ELCAC has taken this red tagging and terrorist tagging to governments and funding agencies in Europe, North America and Australia to try to block grants to Salin Lahi, CRC and others. Duterte's anti-drug operations massively harmed thousands of children, with over 122 children killed. The case of the police murder of school student Kian de los Santos is notorious. With tens of thousands of breadwinners and caregivers slain in these so-called anti-drug operations, many children dropped out of school and started working and living on the streets. When household members are killed, children suffer the debilitating emotional, psychological, educational and economic effects of the violence. Police sexually abused a teenager, Fabel Pineda, after she was found on the street during a pandemic curfew. They killed her when she filed a case against them. Police put 2 children into a coffin and 5 children into a dog cage to punish them for allegedly breaching the pandemic lockdowns. 2 babies born in prison to their political prisoner mothers were separated soon after birth, only to die from lack of proper nutrition and care. Duterte and the NTF-ELCAC have red-tagged universities and the Alliance of Concerned Teachers and threatened to invade campuses to arrest students or teachers who are alleged to be recruiting terrorists. So, international solidarity and support for children in the Philippines is really urgent and important. The attacks against children by state forces is a cowardly and unspeakable crime. We must pay attention to the concerns of organisations on the ground in the Philippines, like Salin Lahi and the Children's Rehabilitation Centre. iChirp will continue to advocate for the rights of children, campaign for an end to aid to military and police forces who abuse those rights, and support the collective rights of the Filipino people to determine their own future, a future that will be fit for children. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Padayon.
Thank you, Peter. It is timely for us to take action and help advance the rights of the Filipino children. Our sharing has been so far full and very informative. We will now have our open forum. Due to time, we can take 2 to either 3 questions. If you have a questions or realization or something to share, feel free to either raise your hand or write it in the chat box. Please introduce your organization and where you are based before raising your question. For the open forum, you can raise your question to Salin Lahi or CRC. Yeah. Okay, we have a question here in the chat box. Thank you for the presentations. Can you speak more to the challenges of documentation and how the international community can help? This question is from Drew iChirp Global. Who can I invite to answer? Maybe Candice or Olivia? Candice from San Lahi or Olivia from CRC?
Yeah, I can try to answer. um, as was mentioned earlier, the reports that the UN have provided show a discrepancy from what we hear from the children themselves. So it's difficult to really get a good grasp of what the numbers say and what's projected. So having the international community visit the communities is one way. I know that international solidarity missions do make a big difference. Not only do we get to expose the horrific things that happen in different communities across the Philippines, but it's also another way for us to be able to investigate properly from an external body what's happening in the different communities affected by militarization or harassment and outposts that the military have in different parts of the Philippines. So yeah, the international community can definitely help by ensuring that they spread awareness. Webinars like this really help when you participate and share the information. And joining international solidarity missions is really powerful way. Every time there's a report back, it's another way for the greater public to be educated on how children are impacted and how communities are impacted by militarization and by actual policies that harm communities. Just is kind of the basic way that I can share. I don't know if Olive wants to add to that from CRC.
Thank you, Candice. Olive, would you like to add?
Yeah, well, in addition to what Candice has shared, well, most of the workers on ground are under attack. So it's really very difficult to 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 go there on the ground and document. So with the help, yeah, I guess Candice said is very helpful. No? If there are other people who will help us spread the situation. And even our workers, even not only Lindy was accused of being um child as a child violation case in other regions as well, Bicol and Southern Tagalog are partners on the ground. So I agree with Candice.
Thank you both. There's a question in the chat box from Ligaya McGovern, Malaya USA, and Indiana University USA. The question is, has there been any of the cases brought to court? What was the results?
Last 2021, we have this minor who was abducted for several months and was physically tortured and was raped by CAFGO, a paramilitary in southern Tagalog. When she was able to escape the abductors, we were able to help her file a case, but we have evidences, but the court dismissed the case because of insufficient evidences, and they wanted the child and the family to file the case in the province where the incident happened. So it was dismissed, and then the family was not able to go back to the community because they are being hunted by the military. But in most of the cases of human rights violations, the communities live in interiors. So it will, for them to be able to go to the courts, it will mean resources, transportation, and then the process will be very tedious. The process, they will have to to shell out expenses, and it will be very difficult for the family, and lawyers will be hard as well. So it's, so the filing of legal cases is very difficult, and aside from the harassment and the threats that they will experience. And there are very limited, and even the police, no, they have this, um, they are not very well trained, no, in handling children victims. So instead of going to the authorities, and also the perpetrators are police and military. So the family or even the children will be very afraid to seek for legal support. So it's very we have very limited cases. And it's very difficult for us to really encourage them to seek legal remedies.
Thank you for your answer, Olivia, to the question. Underlining the importance of building solidarity for the Filipino children. Also, with the question from Ligaya, I would like to close the question and answer portion. Going into our solidarity action that we mentioned in the beginning, if you have a paper doll or a doll in hand, we're going into, I would like to invite you to open your camera, as it will be a screenshot that we will take with the calls that we have from Sanin Lahi and Children's Rehabilitation Center, together with the paper dolls, to symbolize our commitment for the Filipino children, for participating in sharing and raising your questions, and definitely being here in your commitment to build solidarity for the Filipino children. We want to thank our partners, iChirp, Sanin Lahi, and CRC for making today's event possible. We went over time. It's pretty late in the Philippines, although it's still morning and afternoon elsewhere. Thank you so much for staying on. We recognize the participation of the Children's Collective and your amazing live performance. Kudos to all the work that you have been putting already so far in advocating for the rights and organizing for a stronger voice to claim their space in building Philippine society. I hope this was as enriching to everyone as it was to me. Now that we know more and understand more about the situation of the Filipino children, it will not be the end of our endeavor. We want this to be the core of our unities, and together we will march forward for the rights of Filipino children. Thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you in our next activities, as shared by Isi Manano. Good night, good evening, good morning. Hope you have another good day